Welcome to today's episode of the Working Wisdom podcast series, brought to you by the C.T. Bauer College of Business at the University of Houston. We're having a conversation about work-life balance, how to navigate and overcome challenges within your career, and how to make business more accommodating to a diverse workforce.
Hello, this is Kelly McCormack. I work with the Bauer College of Business at the University of Houston, and I am the managing director of Red Labs, which is the University of Houston's startup accelerator. And so basically what that means is that I help students and faculty members at the University of Houston commercialize technology and to launch a startup. And in the fall, I'm actually teaching a class for women in entrepreneurship. And that's part of the reason why I'm here today is because I'm very interested in helping more women become entrepreneurs and in evaluating some of the struggles that they have as female entrepreneurs. And we are doing a podcast called How Does She Do It? With Betsy Gelb, who also works at Bauer College at the University of Houston. And I actually just want to start off by hearing from her a little bit more about what she does so she can give you a background about who she is so we can get a little bit more into how she does it after that.
I'm a professor of marketing and entrepreneurship in the Bauer College. Been doing this for more than 40 years, which means I write academic journal articles, teach classes, serve on committees, try to help out in the community.
And I know that you've also won the Bauer College Faculty of the Year Award twice, so you're a very well-respected, well-esteemed faculty member. And a lot of this podcast is talking about like how you've been very successful and how you've also been able to balance that with your life as well as your work. So how do you think you've been able to be successful in your work, and how do you make that work with your personal life?
Well, my personal life has consisted historically of one husband and 3 children, although the children are no longer children. And we used to teach a course here called Women in Management. And the woman who taught it, Professor Betty Stead, at one point ran a panel of husbands. And she got my husband to come be on the panel. And what is it like to be, I was at that point assistant dean, so I was technically a woman in management. What is it like? And my husband said, well, I opened the refrigerator this morning for breakfast, and there was meatloaf raw in a pan with a note to our son that said when he got home from school, put it in a 350-degree oven about maybe 4:45. So I guess that's what it's like to be married to a woman in management. She better be organized.
Well, that's an interesting story. So I know you also were one of the first women to get your degree or get your PhD at the University of Houston. Actually, the first woman, right?
In business, the first, yes.
Yes. What was it like being a woman at that time when there weren't that many women doing what you were doing?
I think you had to be, or perhaps still have to be, somewhat confident. The point really isn't that you're the only woman in the class. The point is, what do you need to do for this project or that paper or this assignment? And so if you're confident enough that it doesn't even seem like a factor that you're the only woman sitting there or the only woman on your team doing a project or whatever, that's going to be a big help. And I think one of the goals I hope women have in our college and anywhere else is to go into situations where maybe they're not totally comfortable walking in, but they realize they can do just fine, and then they'll be more confident coming out, whatever it is.
How do you think you get to that point of realizing you can just do just fine? Do you have any strategies that you've used over the years to, be comfortable in those situations?
Well, I think education is a big part of it. I think realistically, People who are getting undergraduate degrees should think about getting graduate degrees. People who have the opportunity to do what I will call extracurricular educational things, and one that comes to mind is Toastmasters, that gives you practice talking in public, sometimes on an assigned topic, sometimes not. But to look for ways that you can get better at skills that you know are going to be helpful and recognized.
That's good advice. So you just basically work at those skills that you think will be successful. I also just want to shift a little bit. I know that we talked a little bit about your career and about your life and that balance, but do you think there's anything about like having your personal life balance that helped you be a better teacher or a better
absolutely.
manager?
I got an email within the last 3 weeks from a woman in our Master of Science in Marketing program. They have to do a project. I supervise those projects. I had sent out a note to all of the people doing them. Hey, I'd like to see a one-page summary of what you're going to do so you will have confidence that what you're doing is what we want. Okay. So I got an email back from one of them. I got back from vacation and my son was really sick, and we took him to the hospital, and the last thing I've been thinking about was this one-page paper in effect. And I was able to send her back an email and say, hey, I'm the mother of 3. I understand what priorities are. Do not worry about it. And I could have sent the same email without saying I'm the mother of 3, but I suspect it was more comforting the way I could send it.
So do you think that there is also the flip side of that coin, that being a manager position and also being a teacher helped you in your personal life as well?
When you're a teacher, you're an authority figure, let's be real. So one of my fondest recollections, I was on a negotiating committee for my church. We were selling some property to another group. And 4 of us, 4 of them in the room, I'm the only woman, big surprise. And a guy from the other side is talking about how they're going to make us this offer and whatever, and he said, market value something, and then he looked at me, not anybody else, of course, and said, are you understanding this? And you know how sometimes you open your mouth and just something comes out, and I said, well, I have a PhD in business, I guess I can limp along. And of course, the guys on my side are grinning away, and there's just dead silence from the 4 on the other side until they kind of regroup. So I guess from that point of view, being an authority figure allows you to say things with some confidence.
I think that's a great story. I think that happens to women more often than we realize, or that is acknowledged, and in sometimes less subtle ways. That was clearly very obvious that he was hinting at there. But I respect that you took a stand there. I think that's very difficult for some women to do, and that's part of the problem with gaining confidence to be in some of these roles. What do you think has helped you, or like who do you think has helped you have that kind of confidence beyond just learning these skills? Because it seems like it was already kind of ingrained in you in some ways, because it takes a big leap to be one of the first women to do these things. Do you think there are any special things that helped you along the way?
Sure. I worked for an anti-poverty organization when we first moved to Houston from New Orleans. And it was run by a woman. Mm-hmm. And I had never seen a woman run, what was at that point, due to federal grants, a more than $1 million budget organization. And I looked over the situation and I said, I would like to pick you up and drive you to work every day and drive you home so you can tell me in the car, without having to spend work time on it, what you expected to get done that day and how it worked out. And that's exactly what we did. And it was probably, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes out of my way each way to do that, to pick her up and drop her off. But that was a revelation to me, because she was a person who set objectives for meetings, for any kind of one-on-one encounter with an employee, with somebody outside of the organization. She knew how she wanted this conversation to go, which of course didn't always happen, but then she would tell me about that on the way in, and then on the way home she'd tell me either, yeah, it worked, or no, here's what I think I could have done differently and better.
I think that brings up a really important point that I've noticed, that women are more successful sometimes when they have the mentorship of another woman to help them along and to help them realize that this is something they can do. And I think that doesn't necessarily always apply to women. It's something that happens for people in general, that, if they see their father being an entrepreneur, that they're more likely to be an entrepreneur. If there's someone else that they can turn to and see that they've done it, that they feel they can do it as well. But how do you think you find those appropriate mentors? It sounds like you worked with someone that was really great.
Well, I'd start with the ones that do know who the obvious ones are. I asked her whether I could do this. Obviously, she wasn't going to say to me, would you like to be my chauffeur? So I wanted to invest the time to get the education, if you wanted to look at it as a kind of education. Any kind of request that you make, the more concrete you are, the more likely somebody is to say yes. If somebody says to me, would you be my mentor, the first question out of my mouth would be, what do you mean by that? What do you have in mind? What kind of time commitment am I making? What do you plan to get out of this? Then, to answer your question of how do you find people, I do marketing research. We talk about something called snowball sampling, which is, you roll the small snowball and you roll it through the snow. Maybe in Houston people don't know. And it turns into a bigger snowball. So who do you know that could recommend someone to you, maybe in your organization, in your neighborhood, in your religious organization, I don't know where. And then who do they know who even might recommend somebody else? I mean, it might be two people down the road. But if that's your objective, I want to learn, I'd start out thinking, what is it that I want to learn to do better? And the more concrete you are, the more smoothly such things go. I am looking for somebody who is willing to invest an hour a week in talking to me about how they handle situations like A, B, and C. Okay, somebody to whom you say that can kind of think about that, and it's concrete enough that you're not just saying, I want a mentor, which strikes me as less likely to be successful.
Great, yeah, I agree. We're going to take a short break to hear an important message. When we return, we'll continue with our conversation with Betsy Gelb on how does she do it.
Got an idea for a startup? Red Labs is the University of Houston's co-working space, startup accelerator, and technology entrepreneurship program. Supported by Bauer's Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship, we work with UH-affiliated founders to turn your technology startup ideas into high-growth ventures. We provide free co-working space, access to mentors and resources in the startup community, and customized startup curriculum. For more information, visit redlabs.bauer.uh.edu.
So I also wanted to talk with you a little bit more, Betsy, about the resources that women can use as entrepreneurs or as leaders. And I know that we talked a little bit about on the break about some of the products or technology that could be available to help women, and I wanted your opinion about what some of those products that could be available or what you think might be something for the future.
Two things occur to me. First of all, in terms of building confidence in women, I would start by building confidence in girls. I mentioned Toastmasters earlier. There is, so far as I know, nothing called junior Toastmasters, although some elementary schools, I think, in their after-school programs offer kinds of dramatic arts experiences. But it seems to me that if girls at the age of 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever were enrolled in what amount to public speaking opportunities of various kinds, they would be far more confident people throughout the rest of their educational and career lives, and that would be a good thing. The other thing that occurs to me on the mom side, or the, work-life balance is not my favorite phrase because it implies work is not life, and boy is it. But I'm all for low-salt prepared foods. I am a person who has never claimed to cook. I said I prepare meals, which is quicker. And the reason I cannot live on prepared foods is that a whole lot of them are just way too salty, likewise restaurant stuff that you would buy to take out. And I think there's a market there for low-salt foods in supermarkets at their prepared food counters, from restaurants maybe as takeout. And then if people want to add salt to them, fine, but I don't.
Interesting. I actually heavily rely on those prepared meals, so I know what you mean by that. You also mentioned that you thought women could really benefit from the public speaking, or I guess girls could really benefit from public speaking training. I've talked to a lot of people, especially in STEM disciplines, about how women believe at a very young age that they're better suited for history and English professions, and they wouldn't necessarily do as well in math and science. And for some reason, that started at a very young age for them. And that's something I think is one of the problems with entrepreneurship, is that there aren't very many in tech entrepreneurship because there aren't very many women who believed at a young age they should go into science or engineering. So I think that the public speaking part you mentioned would be very valuable for them. But I'm wondering, do you think there's anything else that could be done at a school level to help women believe that whatever career they choose could be something that they could be successful at in the future?
Any guidance counselor, any teacher, whatever, who believes, because I believe beliefs show that men are better suited to STEM disciplines, needs to be straightened out in plain English. Because women do not get that message out of the air and from the clouds, they get it from people. And I can remember a daughter who, when she went into high school, she came home and said, "I'm the vice president of the math club." And I said, "Oh, how come?" And she said, "Because I'm the second best in the class in math." And I said, "Great." And I didn't sound surprised because I wasn't. And I think anybody who has in their heads that there's any difference across genders in these abilities is wrong and needs to get over it, and then will refrain from communicating messages that just aren't right.
You also mentioned something about the work-life balance. You said work is life, essentially. How important do you think it is to get that career that you really care about, that you're really passionate about?
Astronomically important. how many years are you going to work, folks? We're all living longer. There are all sorts of statistics about people retiring later for whatever reasons. So any effort that people will make, any investment they will make in their own career, as in, hey, we're marketing MBAs, we're not subtle about it, you're going to have a payoff of decades, and that's certainly, to me, a worthwhile investment to get yourself up to an educational level where you can get the job that you're going to enjoy, feel fulfilled in, get promoted beyond, whatever. But work is sure part of life.
I agree. It's really important to have a job that you like. I can tell a night and day difference between the job I have right now, which I love, and previously working as an attorney for a very limited amount of time. I recognized almost immediately that it was not something that I wanted to do. With that in mind, though, how do you think you go about finding that career? Because I think, especially right now, sometimes you don't know that right off the bat from your classes that you take in your undergraduate degree. Oftentimes the career is very different from what you expected based on the coursework. So do you have any suggestions for how you go about finding that passionate career?
First of all, I think people could be good at many things. So it isn't like, there's this one magic match out there and you have to figure out what it is. No, I don't think that. Here at Bauer, we have the Rockwell Career Center. We have people who can ask you questions and discern that you might like to go in a particular direction or not go in a particular direction. But I'd be big on asking questions. I teach a course called Books an MBA Should Read, which MBAs take, Master of Science in Marketing people take, Master of Science in Accounting people take. And one of the books on our list is called Just Listen, and talks about how important that is. So the more people to whom you say, tell me about your job, and they will be general at first, they will not be helpful. And you can say, what do you do at 10 o'clock in the morning? And that'll help. And what's the best experience you've had in the last month at work? And what's the worst experience you had in the last month at work? And you can begin to find out more than you know now by listening and by asking questions.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Working Wisdom podcast series from the C.T. Bauer College of Business, brought to you by the Working Families Initiative. The initiative aims to provide support and access for women in business school and the workforce, and to generate research that organizations can use to implement policies and standards to benefit a diverse workforce. For more information about Bauer College and this podcast series, visit www.bauer.uh.edu/podcasts.